The useful article doctrine in copyright law can be considered a little bit murky at times, and hence the image you're seeing. But we'll try to sort it out. Now, let's start with going over an overview of copyrightability before we get to the useful article doctrine so you can see things in context. So the first question in analyzing copyrightability is whether it's original to you, making sure you didn't copy from another. Now, it is theoretically possible for two individuals to have a copyright in the same expression if they did not copy from one another, but rather copied something from nature. Now, assuming something is original to you, you then ask if it's fixed with minimal creativity. Now, in terms of whether it's fixed with minimal creativity, this could include selection and arrangement of elements, such as what angle to take a picture. If you have those two things, you then need to worry about a statutory bar or a common law bar. Now, there are some absolute exclusions from copyrightability, such as methods, ideas, facts, works created by the federal government, and even laws and annotations by states. On the other hand, there is, and the red is for the absolute bar, a kind of more warning sign for pictorial or graphical sculptural work that is a useful article. We'll talk about what that is in a minute, but this is a warning, but not an absolute red thing that you want to be really wary of because it only sometimes limits copyrightability. It's not an absolute bar. Now, useful article bars what? Notably, it does not bar copyrightability of all works. In particular, it only bars copyrightability to some extent of pictorial graphical sculptural works, which is what you should see in the back, or at least that's what it represents. It does not bar literary works, and it does not bar computer software, i.e. the code in here, which is a kind of literary work. Now, you may be wondering, what is pictorial graphical sculptural work? This is the official definition, but I think it's easier to think of it as two basic subparts: fine art and then applied or otherwise commercial art. So here are some examples of what you may think of as fine art or fancy art, things you probably associate with museums, people who have a lot of money to spend. On the other hand, applied or commercial art is for the rest of us who may not have a ton of money to spend, but we could take a picture or buy a picture or buy a print or have a schematic, a technical drawing, or even a 2D or 3D stuffed animal or puppet that is a kind of sculpture and would fit. Also, utensils could be applied art in that it's something that's useful but still artistic. Now, there are some kinds of pictorial graphical sculptural work that are not barred, i.e. they're not useful articles. Why or when? Two categories. One is if it portrays appearance solely or solely provides information. So let's look at some examples. So a picture or a sculpture only portrays appearance. There's nothing you're supposed to do with it. Similarly, a map is providing information. It has a use to you, but is not a useful article for which we have to do a separate analysis. On the other hand, a chair does more than portray appearance, and I don't think it's really providing any helpful information. Rather, it is a useful article for which you have to further evaluate it. Now, for useful articles like the chair, we can only have copyrightability if the design of that article, i.e. the chair's design, has features that can be identified separate from and capable of existing independent of its utilitarian aspects. So, Are their design features separate and independent from utilitarian aspects? Now, there's two different ways this could be true. One is physical separability, and the other is conceptual separability. I think the easier to understand is physical separability, in that you could literally take that part off. So, for example, this could be the cover of a radiator heater that you can physically remove, that would be physically separable. Whereas conceptually separable means in your head, you could maybe imagine it being separable. How would that work? Well, that's actually subject to a whole different doctrine under the Star Athletica test, but hopefully this at least provides a helpful overview.